Hi, my name is Melissa Shepard, and I'm going to share a devotional with you today, and then we're going to do a craft together. On Palm Sunday, Pastor Brad encouraged us all to send a card to someone, to encourage someone. This is, of course, a biblical idea. Paul in 1 Thessalonians 5:11 says, "Therefore encourage one another and build up one another, just as you also are doing." But we're in quarantine, so how do you send a card to encourage someone when you can't go to the store and buy a card and you don't have any in the house? So we are going to make a card today, and we're going to do it with items that you probably have in your home. And the main thing that we're going to use is junk mail. So you are going to need a few things. You want to find a few pieces of junk mail and look for things that are interesting on that, like a stamp, a graphic, different colors, or a window. You can use an old greeting card or an old bulletin. You can also use an old greeting card envelope. You will need an envelope to mail your card in. A small length of ribbon, yarn, twine, something like that. An adhesive like glue or double-sided tape. And then scissors or paper trimmer. And I also am using a hole punch today. So while you're gathering up your supplies, I want to talk to you a few minutes. Let's talk about the life of Paul. We are in a time where we can easily start to feel imprisoned in our homes. I am not an extrovert by any means, but I've had times when this has started to get to me. And then there are times that we feel we are imprisoned, and that time that we feel imprisoned keeps getting longer and longer. And this feels unjust when we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, but we see others that are going around like life is normal, and that's just extending the time for all of us. This had me thinking about the life of Paul. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, the first part of this. In Acts chapter 21:30, Paul is arrested. In Acts 22:25, Paul tells the commander that he is a Roman, and this is basically putting Paul into the court system. In Acts 23:24, Paul is sent to Felix, the governor. In Acts 24:27, the Bible says, "But after 2 years, Porcius Festus succeeded Felix, and Felix, wanting to do the Jews a favor, left Paul bound." So at this point, Paul has been in prison for 2 years. Okay, then moving on, in Acts 25:6-8, the Bible says, "And when he," and this is Festus that it's talking about, "when he had remained among them for more than 10 days, he went down to Caesarea, and the next day, sitting on the judgment seat, he commanded Paul to be brought. When he had come, the Jews who had come down from Jerusalem stood about and laid many serious complaints against Paul, which they could not prove, while he answered for himself, 'Neither against the law of the Jews, nor against the temple, nor against Caesar have I offended in anything at all.'" So Paul was unjustly imprisoned. And from here, he's still going through the courts. This is not the end of the story. From here, he is shipwrecked on Malta for 3 months. And then once he gets to Rome, Acts 28:16 says he was allowed to live alone with the soldier who guarded him. So he was under house arrest in Rome for another 2 years. And during that time, all of this time, Paul stood up for himself, but I don't read that he complained. I don't think that I can say that about myself after a few weeks of house arrest in a comfortable home. Okay, so what did Paul do during this time? Paul wrote letters. He wrote letters to all who are in Rome, to the church of God at Corinth twice, to the churches of Galatia, to the saints in Ephesus, to all the saints in Philippi, to the saints and faithful brethren in Colossae, to the church of the Thessalonians twice, to Timothy twice, to Titus, to Philemon, and ultimately to the whole world through the Bible. So we can see that Paul lived what he preached in 1 Thessalonians 5:11. He did encourage other believers, and he did it while he was unjustly imprisoned. Okay, now we're going to make our cards so you can encourage someone today. Okay, so to make our card, I'm going to start with this envelope. I liked that it had this big window on the front of it. Any envelope would do. If it has an address at the top, a return address, you can cover that up. This one doesn't happen to have one. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I want to glue down, a lot of times these little flaps come up. I want to make sure that those are stuck down so that they are not going to catch anything. And as I'm putting things in my card, I don't want them to catch there. So I'm going to take and glue those down. And then I've folded this right by the window. And I'm going to take and run a line of glue along the top and the bottom. And I'm not going to run this on all three sides because I want this to be a pocket to slide in a card that we can write on, a little journal card. Okay, so I'm going to glue this, make sure that's down, just hold that for a second, let it adhere. So we have a pocket here, you have a pocket here, and a pocket here, so you have 3 pockets by doing that. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside for a second, and I'm going to move on. I want to work on the little journal card that we're going to put in this front pocket. So to do that, I'm going to take this manila colored envelope. I'm actually going to use the back of this envelope. I'm going to take that out of there, and I'm going to just cut this along the edges. And I've actually pre-marked where I want to cut this. Okay, and I'm going to get rid of the front of this. I'm not going to use that. Not at this point. Okay, so what I did is I took and I measured how far I wanted this to show, or how big this pocket needed to be. So I marked that with a pencil, and then I can take, and I don't cut very straight lines with a pair of scissors, so I'm going to actually cut this with a paper trimmer. And I'm just going to trim this up, make sure it's completely straight. Okay, and I'm going to cut this little flap off. I don't need that. Alright, so I have this, and I'm going to do some work on this. I found this is from, I think I gave my niece a magazine when she was like 5, a magazine subscription, and I get kids mail all the time. So this is just showing that. I thought the little graphics on here were cute. So I'm going to cut out this little boy with the telescope, and I think I'm going to say something along the lines of, "Till I see you again." I thought that would be cute. And this, I'm not going to try to cut it super like in a straight square or anything like that. I'm going to cut it like this. I did keep it straight here at the bottom where it has that kind of peachy color line. And I'm going to take and put this on here. And I had this envelope as well, and I thought the colors on this were really cool. So I'm actually going to cut a strip of this to put along the top here where this was sealed, and it doesn't look very pretty. And if you want everything to be really straight, you can draw it or draw it out or do it with a paper trimmer. I could have done that better. I could have had that longer. I just cut it freehand. I still think that that's going to look good though, so I'm going to leave it. Might center it, or maybe not. Okay, and I'm going to put this down. And then I'm going to glue this little guy down, and this is just going to have a short little message on it. Glue does wash off, so if your hands get messy, it will just rub off. I'm sure you all know that. Okay, so this is going to be in here like this, like so. And I'm going to use a hole punch and punch a hole here in this. And I'm going to take a piece of yarn and just cut a little pull. You could pull this out, of course, without this yarn, but I'm just going to use this to as a pull. Okay, so that's going to go like that, and then I have a place where I can write a note on the back. I think I'm going to leave that blank because I could write a note there. I could write a note here on the back of this. I can put a little short, "Till we meet again," "Till I see you again," something along those lines. So I'm going to do that, like so, and that will slide in there. And then I have this was an insert in a piece of mail, and I'm just going to fold this and use this as another little card to put in here. And let me see. It fits in there perfect. So I'm just going to fold this in half. Just for a little stability, and then you can write on both sides. I'm going to just take and glue this together. And then I'm going to go back to this piece, and I think I'm going to use this little girl that was on here. And if you have stickers or anything like that, you can use anything to decorate this, of course. Just thought it would be cute to show you an idea of something that was completely done from junk mail. If you have greeting cards, you can use old greeting cards, cut like a little verse out of a greeting card or a little graphic out of a greeting card, and that would be really cute. I've done a couple like that as well, actually. But this one is just going to be all junk mail. Put the little girl down on there. And I'm going to punch a hole in this as well. I think it's cute with all the little poles. That's completely, whether you want to do it or not, it doesn't matter one way or the other. And you can use anything, of course, string, twine, a little piece of yarn, ribbon, if you decide to do this. Okay, so there is a little card for in here. And it'll slide right in there like so. So you have this one, and then you have this one as well. And then finally I'm going to make one to go in here. And I'm going to actually use an old bulletin. And don't look at the date, I've kept this forever, or you can look at the date, November 4th, 2018. So I put these in a box a lot of times and keep them. And I use them a lot of times for journal cards because the picture is so pretty, and if you take sermon notes someplace else, then this is a great journal, makes a great journal card. So it is a trifold bulletin, of course. I've already torn this part off. I'm going to remove that. So that leaves me with the picture of the cross on the front, which is appropriate since I'm filming this the week of Easter, and then the lined sermon notes on the back. So I'm going to take and just glue this together. And I just want to make sure, and I'm going to cut this down, so this is one that I'm not going to worry as much about getting all the way to the edges because I'm gluing more than what I'm going to use. Okay, I'm going to glue that down, let that set for a second, and then cut this smaller than the line. On a journal card, a lot of times I'll cut it exactly to the edges of the picture. I'm going to cut this one a little smaller, and this picture with this background lends itself to this really well. Then you have this the cross on the front, and I need to trim it down a little more because you can still see the sermon notes, and we don't want to see that. I'll mark this. Make sure I'm not cutting off the front of the cross. I think we're going to cut it really close though. I should have torn those apart and cut them separately, or moved this down. but it's still good. We still have the top of the cross here. And then finally, I mean, same thing, I'm going to punch a hole in the top of it and put a pole. And that will slide right in here. Okay, it will not, so I need to trim it down a little bit more. So this is the thing, you can always make adjustments. So if something doesn't work out exactly how you thought it was going to, it's fine. Just make the needed adjustments. So you can always make it work somehow. Okay, that is a little rough. I didn't let it dry very well, so going kind of fast. You can let yours dry a little longer before you cut, and you will have cleaner cuts than what I'm getting. Okay, so now let's try this again, and it's going to slide in there really well. Well, I said it was. It's going to make me out to be a liar. Okay. So, an interesting little card. I might actually cut this down a little bit. There it goes. Okay, it's just a little tight. Might need to trim that down a little bit more, or once it's dry, a little drier, it'll slide in there a little easier. So here you have the front again. You have a little card here where you can write a little note, and that will slide back into there. I may take and cover the inside of this because that's not very pretty. But you have that little note, you have the little note here in the back, and the note here on this side. So just a little creative way to make a card and send a card if you don't have any cards, and using things that you have like your junk mail. And then the envelope, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this old greeting card envelope that I received from my secret sister last year, and I'm just going to cover up where it has my name, but we're going to make it look intentional. So here's a part of a red envelope that I had, and I've already cut it. I've used part of it for something else. So I'm going to just cut this apart. I'm going to use this part of it here. I'm going to bring that paper trimmer back, and I'm just going to trim this up a little. Not like that. Okay, I'm going to use scissors. gonna put this where it's a little lower to write an address on. So I'm gonna hit right at the top of the name here. And then I'm going to use another little piece up here for the return address. And the return address, of course, doesn't need to be as big. Got a little corner sticking up, so we don't want anything like that, of course. And here again too. Okay, so here is the repurposed envelope and the card, and it will fit in here very well, and it's ready to mail. Thank you for being with me today and making a card with me. I know that all of your cards are very unique, so I want to encourage you to follow the example of Paul and send this card to someone this week. You don't have to write multiple chapters to all the saints at Dallas First Assembly of God. Just an encouraging note to one will do. And you're going to be amazed that you are just as encouraged as the person who receives your card. Have a good day.